Let the Victor Scott II era begin. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X at JD Sports Radio, and follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. Want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Make sure if you're stopping by, you like, you subscribe, and comment. Don't be shy. Interact with us, hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. This episode being brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So the word came down early this afternoon. Before we get to that, actually, let me give this breaking news. Jordan Montgomery signing with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Arizona Diamondbacks, Eduardo Rodriguez was their big signing as far as pitchers go this offseason, and hasn't been good. I think he's dealing with an injury too. So they went out and got Jordan Montgomery because they can. And missed opportunity for the Cardinals, but Jordan Montgomery going to the Diamondbacks. Anyway. Word came down earlier this afternoon. Let's focus on the Cardinals now, not ex-Cardinals, that outfielder Dylan Carlson is going to start the season on the injured list due to an AC joint sprain in his left shoulder, which is not great news. It's not the worst news, but certainly not the best news either. We were hoping that, he would just be, he's bumped up, he's bruised, he's a little sore, but he's going to be fine. But AC joint sprain, not great. Not great, Bob. And it's a bummer for the team, for the fans, and especially for Carlson, because everything seemed to be working out for DC. He was finally healthy. He was feeling confident. He was going to be the starting center fielder for the foreseeable future with Tommy Edman on the shelf for God knows how long. And then tragedy strikes on Monday in their second to last game of the spring. He collides with right fielder Jordan Walker on a ball in the gap. Walker dives for the ball, takes out Carlson's legs, sending him tumbling to the warning track. He lands on that left shoulder, gets removed from the game, and apparently had a drooping left arm and looked dejected in the clubhouse, so you knew something was up. It wasn't just going to be something small. And then we find out sprained AC joint. He'll join Tommy Edman and Lars Nootbaar on the disabled list to start the season. And it's just a massive blow to a guy who, like Nootbaar, it's not that he's out there doing anything wrong. He's playing hard. He's just playing the game of baseball and is dealing with weird and unfortunate injuries over and over and over again. And there's a but here. In response to Carlson's IL stint, the team has decided to keep Victor Scott II on the 26-man roster. And reports are that he will get the starting nod in center field on Thursday against the Dodgers. He is your new starting center fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. And when asked about Scott's role with the club, manager Ali Marmol said today, he is our starting center fielder. He's here to play. So they're not going to just baby him and just be like, all right, well, maybe he'll get in at bat here and there. They're throwing him right into the fire, which was the whole idea when we were having the discussions about whether or not he should make the team or not. Because if you're going to keep him, you play him. And if you're not going to keep him, then you put him somewhere that he is going to play. And that idea was Memphis. Now, this is something that is going to excite fans because Victor Scott was arguably the most exciting player for the team at camp this spring. For those of you who may not be up to speed on exactly who Victor Scott II is, let me give you a quick rundown. First off, he's been on this show before, which is great. He was really courteous and joined us. One of the first guys I got a chance to talk to. He is currently the number 4 prospect in the organization, according to MLB Pipeline. 5th-round draft pick out of West Virginia in 2022. And when you looked at those college numbers, there wasn't really a whole lot there that was like, stood out to you. There wasn't nothing about these There's 124 games, hit 254 in college with metal bats, 11 home runs, 75 RBIs. Nothing all that special. But then your eyes go down over here to the stolen base section, and you see 62 of them. And that stands out a bit. In his final season at West Virginia, he steals 38 bases in 55 games. And as most of you know, Major League Baseball has made some rule changes to get a little more action going on the base paths. And that's great for a player like Victor Scott, who has all this speed. And when he gets on base, it's something to watch. In his first full season in the minor leagues last year, which was 132 minor league games, he stole 94 bases. 94, which tied him for the most at any level of minor league baseball, and is 21 more than Ronald Acuna Jr. stole to lead the major leagues with 73. He did that in 159 games. Not saying that same caliber catchers and stuff are at those levels, but the other impressive number about Victor's stolen base total of 94 is how many times he was thrown out. 14. Only 14 times. 87% success rate. That's pretty good. Started the year at A-ball, where he played 66 games, hit 282 with 2 home runs, 29 RBIs, 44 runs scored, and was 50 of 57 in the stolen base department, while also accumulating a 365 on-base percentage. He ends up getting promoted to Double-A Springfield, and he doesn't slow down. In fact, he gets better. He speeds up. Another 66 games at Double-A, hits 323, 7 home runs, 34 RBIs, 51 runs scored, 44 of 51 in the stolen base department, and has an on-base percentage of 373. So he got better. He then gets selected to go to the Arizona Fall League. He accepts the invite. He plays 23 games there, hits 286, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 19 runs scored, and goes 18 of 21 in stolen base attempts with an OBP of 388. Up again. So I did the math for everybody. In his full combined season of 2023, when you include A-ball, Double-A, and the Arizona Fall League, Victor Scott played in 155 games. He hit 301, popped 12 dingers, drove in 71, scored 114 runs, and stole 112 bases. Oh, and if you're wondering if he's good at anything else, yeah, he won a minor league Gold Glove in the outfield. So one of the best defensive outfielders in all of the minor leagues. So you can see why people were excited, and I was excited to see him coming into spring training this year, because we didn't get a chance to watch, games in the minor leagues. It's not that easy. So he gets to spring training and he doesn't disappoint there either. Appears in 14 games, hits 317, 10 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, OBP of 404, and he continued to flash the leather that made him that Gold Glove Award winner in the minor leagues. Had numerous nice catches. And the plan, despite all of this, was to send Scott to AAA Memphis to start the year, let him get some time down there. Hadn't played above Double-A yet. And when he was ready, or when the team needed him, we give him a call. He comes up, and the story would continue. But we got to speed things up now, because the team needs him now. He was already arguably the best defensive outfielder on the roster, and he also adds the stolen base dynamic and threat that the Cardinals really don't have a lot of, especially with Tommy Edman out. So I want to talk more about him being a threat and a difference maker on the base paths, and what else he can do for this team, and how the outfield is going to look now. We'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's just you against the numbers, guys. Nothing to be afraid of. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and then you watch your winnings roll in. It's very, very simple. Conference tournaments in both sides are all wrapped up. You're into the Sweet 16 now for the men's and the women's. You got NIT games going on. The biggest moments of college basketball, they're here. They're happening. And be a part of the action with PrizePicks for both sides, men's and women's. I watched the Caitlin Clark game last night. It was fun. She was really, really good, but it was a tough game against West Virginia. Iowa just snuck by Victor Scott II's alma mater. So that was entertaining. And I suggest that you take your time and look at not only the men's games, but the women's as well, because you can make money with both. It's really simple to play. You can make your picks, submit your entries in less than 60 seconds, and getting your money back when you do win is quick as well. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume because all of the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. You don't have to deal with that. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel is programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter, X, anytime you want. Feedback always welcome and encouraged. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about the news that Victor Scott II is now going to be on the opening day roster. Not only be on the roster, he is your new starting center fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the Carlson injury is a big old bag of suck. No doubt about it. But when one door closes, another one opens up. And me being the pretty positive guy for the most part, I'm going to focus on the silver lining to all of these injuries. That is Victor Scott being on the team rather than the loss of DC, Newton, Tommy. Nothing we can do about that now. Got to move on. So when you talk about things that the Cardinals team does well, or what are some of the key attributes of this team that makes it a perennial division winner, chance to make the playoffs this year, speed is not really near the top. In fact, it is way down at the bottom. Not a lot of speed on this roster. And that's going to change now that Victor Scott II is here and is going to be starting and playing every day. The Cardinals are not a fast team. When it comes to stolen base threats outside of Scott, you've got Mason Wynn. When he gets on base, he has struggled to do that a bit this spring, struggled a little bit at the end of last year. We're hoping he'll break out of this funk and be all right. But he's got wheels, but he's got to get on base first. Jordan Walker got wheels, can get you, 20, 25 stolen bases if he plays a full season, which is great for someone who 6'6", 250. But, your normal suspects, Arenado, Goldie, Gorman, Don, Contreras, they're hardly threats to run all that much. And both Newton and Carlson are out. And even if they were in, they're not stealing a whole lot either. Maybe you get 10 to 15 out of those guys if you're lucky. But there's just not a lot of stolen base threats on this team. Michael Ciani's got some speed. But Victor Scott is going to change that dynamic real quick. I previously used former Reds outfielder Billy Hamilton as an example of what Victor Scott can do for this team this year. He can offer elite defense, something Billy Hamilton did very, very well for the Reds for a number of years. And when Billy Hamilton got on base, which was not a lot, granted, same thing goes with Victor Scott. When he gets on base, and we hope he does it a lot better than Hamilton did, but he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem out there. He's a distraction. At the very least, he's a distraction to the pitcher, to the catcher, to the infielders, and his speed just causes havoc out there. It bothers people when he's on first or second or even on third. You saw it in the games that were televised when he was on. The pitcher and the catcher were all weirded out, man. They were so concerned with what was going on with Victor that they kind of lose focus away from the hitters. So the threat of causing getting a stolen base and being in motion, it's a good thing for the St. Louis offense. If he's batting leadoff, which I don't know if he will, I assume Donovan is still going to be entrenched there, but maybe he does, or whoever he gets on in front of. Maybe he's down at the bottom with Mason Wynn, gets in front of guys like Donovan and then Goldie and Gorman and Arenado. And when that happens, that's good news for the Cardinals offense. I absolutely hate that Dylan Carlson got hurt. I do. Was really rooting for him this year. You guys know that. But it's hard not to be a little bit giddy about all the possibilities that Victor Scott offers this team. And you just hope that his bat is up to the task against Major League pitching. This spring, he seemed fine to me, showed discipline at the plate, was willing to take walks, never really seemed overwhelmed by anybody he saw. I don't suspect that he's going to struggle as much as people might think, because speed makes such a difference. Even if he's hitting, ground balls and stuff, like he's going to beat things out. Like hits that'll be ground outs for other people with lack of speed, he's going to turn them into hits. So I'm just really excited to see him at the major league level. Now, as far as the rest of the outfield goes, to start the year, you're going to have Brendan Donovan and Alec Burleson in left field, Victor Scott and Michael Ciani in center, and then Jordan Walker in right. And the odd thing about this grouping, which it just kind of stands out to me, is that only Jordan Walker swings from the right side. Everybody else, left-handed hitters. You face a lot more right-handers than you do lefties at the major league level. So I guess that's a good thing. Alec Burleson, former second-round pick in 2020, won that AAA batting title in 2022 when he hit .331. Last year as a rookie, played sparingly, got some work in the corner outfield spots and at first base. Kind of had that come to Jesus talk with the coaching staff and management this offseason, who wanted him to work on some things, one of those being his physique. They wanted him in better shape to compete for a spot this spring. And Burleson did everything they asked of him. He trimmed down. He looked good. He dropped weight. Looks great at the plate. Hit .375 this spring. Had another couple of hits today. 1 home run, 8 RBIs, 7 walks, just 4 strikeouts. Even in his play in the outfield, he looked pretty good. Looks a little more nimble out there, a little more agile. But you can see him in the DH role a lot due to the injuries that are going on. You could see him being a DH, Gorman playing second, Donovan out and left, with Scott in center, Walker in right, and that be like your best defensive and probably your normal starting lineup for the foreseeable future. Donovan, that super utility guy, he'll get used in left, as I mentioned, with all these injuries, but certainly at some point will play his fair share of second base, but you're going to see him all over the place. Like they're going to use him everywhere. I know people were starting to squirm a little bit about Michael Ciani possibly being a starting outfielder on this team. I was too. You're not alone. But now that Victor is in and it's been established that he will be the starting center fielder and play a lot, Ciani slides right back into that 4th, 5th outfielder slot where he's probably going to excel. He's perfect for this situation. Strong defensive player, very good speed, another left-handed bat off the bench, and can be someone who is a defensive replacement late in games for Burley, Donovan, Walker. Like, say you get into a situation late in the game, you want to switch it up and become the best defensive team possible. Gorman at second is not your best defensive second baseman. You would move Donovan. If, say, he started in left, you move Donovan over to second. Ciani can go into left field, and then you would have Walker in right, and then Scott in center. You could do that. That could be a move that you make. But there's different combinations that Ollie's going to be able to maneuver with. So, and then obviously a pinch runner late in the game. You got a guy on second, and they don't have a lot of speed. Boom, Ciani, you're coming in, dude. And he can make things happen for you. So, what happens when Newport returns, that I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. If Victor is productive, I don't know how you send him back. But if he struggles, then he can go back to Memphis and just work on his craft a little bit more, and we'll move on from there. Speaking of moving on, let's get to today's final spring game against the Cubs, where I don't know if you watched it, but future NL Cy Young Award winner Kyle Gibson was on the mound today in his final tune-up, and holy crap, did he look good. We'll get into it next on Locked On Cardinals. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament, whether you're betting on a big upset or you're still betting on one of those number 1 seeds. Time to go dancing on America's number 1 sports book. The women's games, as I mentioned, they continue to go. Iowa gets the win last night. The men's games are back underway on Thursday. So you got all 4 number 1 seeds. You got all 4 number 2 seeds. They're all still in there. Your lowest seed, your Cinderella story right now, number 11 seed NC State, who is going to be facing number 2 seed Marquette. NC State came in hot in this tournament. So they were somebody that I had going to the Sweet 16. I have them losing to Marquette in this game in my bracket. But the beauty is, if your brackets are already a mess and they're just all scratch marks and you're not going to win at this point. That's why FanDuel is great, because you can bet on the singular games and still win money with your knowledge. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads and money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel's app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel's app. It is no secret that beating the Cubs is fun. We love it. Just like Cubs fans love beating the Cardinals. We love it when we can beat the Cubs. And I don't care if it was just a spring training game. That atmosphere on Monday and then today, that was cool. Like, it was cool seeing all those people out there on the grassy knoll behind the outfield wall. Packed house there. Was it Sloan Park where they play in Arizona? Cool atmosphere. And it had the feel of a meaningful game. So it was kind of nice to go to the Cubs home and sweep their butts. That was nice, you know? And then you're off to LA. Outside of losing Carlson over these last two games, this was a really good confidence booster for the team. Would I rather have Carlson stayed healthy and lose those two games? Sure. But I don't have choice in that. Can't turn back time. But in these final two games, specifically today, let's talk about today's game. We already went over yesterday's game, but a couple of guys who really needed a jump start as we go to the regular season. Number one, first baseman Paul Goldschmidt. And number two, starting pitcher today, Kyle Gibson. Both of them have had not so great springs. But perhaps today is a turning point for both of them and getting them into the right direction as the regular season begins. Let's start with Goldie, who was barely hitting over 100 coming into today's game. First inning, though, he rips a pitch from Cubs starter Shota Imanaga that off the bat, I genuinely thought it was a home run. I never thought it was going to stay in the ballpark. Never thought it was. He mashed that sucker. And it was just a missile. And Cody Bellinger went back and was like, oh! And it goes over his head off the wall in center field. Ends up scoring on a bloop single by Nolan Gorman, and it was with 2 outs. So I think Goldie thought it was going to get caught. And when it fell in front of Bellinger, he was still kind of just jogging around third base. And they were like, hey, butt gear, dude. I know you haven't been on base much, but come on. But you know how when you're at a driving range and you're hitting golf balls and you're down to the last ball and you smoke it, like, boom, right down the fairway. And that's how you end your bucket. That's kind of what it was like today when I think about Paul Goldschmidt's last hit. He ended on a good one, right? That's what you always try to aim to do, whether you're hitting golf balls or you're at a batting cage. You always want to end on a good one. And hopefully that good one carries over into Thursday's game. The Cardinals did end up tagging Shota Imanaga for 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 8 hits over 3 innings of work. I know our boy Andrew Wang over at Newt News Podcast loves that. He's a big proponent of the Cardinals not getting Imanaga in the offseason. He's very much down on him, so I know he's smiling about what happened today. On the mound for the Cardinals, Kyle Gibson, who gives up a leadoff single, and we're like, oh boy, here we go again. Grab your beer, because here we go again. But then induces the 6-4-3 double play. Crawford, Gorman, nice turn there before striking out Cody Bellinger to end the inning and the threat. And that was about it. Gibson looked really, really good today. A billion times better than any of his other starts this spring. He ends up going 5 innings. He does allow 1 run, a solo shot by Mike Talkman in the 3rd inning, I believe. I think it was the 3rd inning. But solo shots, they're going to happen. But he allows 4 total hits on the day. The Cubbies strike out 9 times. You heard me right. Ed Rooney style. 9 times against Kyle Gibson. And according to Derek Gould, 8 of those punchies came on his slider, which was dancing today. And then, per usual, this spring, the bullpen comes in and, for the most part, shuts things down. The Cubs got another solo shot off of Andrew Kittredge, and it wasn't even a bad pitch. Like, you're not going to knock Kittredge for throwing a ball low and in, and Christian Franklin was the name of the hitter, and he just went down and got it. Sometimes the hitter just wins. It wasn't a bad pitch at all by Kittredge. But Gallegos, shutout inning, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts. Kittredge, other than the home run, strikes out 3 in the inning. Jojo Romero, no runs, no hits, 1 strikeout. Helsley, no runs, no hits, no walks, even better, and 1 strikeout. Bullpen was good. Offensively, the Cardinals score 7 runs on 14 hits, as I mentioned earlier. Alec Burleson, 2 for 3. Ivan Herrera, 2 for 2 with his second home run of the spring. Michael, I'll show you who can't hit. Ciani goes 2 for 3 with a run scored. I'm becoming a Michael Ciani fan. I am. I'm not going to buy a jersey or anything weird to curse him, because that's usually what happens. The last thing I bought of a current player on the Cardinals roster was that Tyler O'Neill towel from when he wasn't even 27 yet. Like, he was still his old number. And you saw what happened there. That was after his MVP caliber season. Just nothing after that. So I'm not buying anything from any of these players. I'm just going to root for him. And I'm rooting for Michael Ciani. I like what he's offered. He's a lot of fun to watch flying around the bases. And I hope we see a lot of it. Hope we see a lot of it here in 2024. Cardinals win this one 7-2. They sweep the Cubs in their 2-game series. And now it's off to Hollywood to face the juggernaut known as the Dodgers and all the Shohei Ohtani drama that's going on with his betting stuff. The Cardinals did make final roster cuts today. And as I predicted, John King, who's been sick, so he hasn't really had a chance to pitch much recently, but didn't have a great spring, got option to Memphis. And that means that Ryan Fernandez is on this team. So good for him. Riley O'Brien on this team. Andre Palante on this team. This bullpen on paper looking pretty good. See how they do in the regular season. We're going to talk more about the final roster, what it looks like, the 26-man and the 40-man, because now there's going to have to be a move now that Victor Scott is going to be active. They're going to have to move somebody. Probably Jared Young, in my opinion. I think Jared Young's in trouble here. But we'll find out. We'll find out what has to happen. They don't have to really announce it until Thursday morning, but we'll see what happens. But we'll talk more about the final roster and the 40-man roster in tomorrow's episode. Thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, please give us a follow on Twitter, X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us immensely grow this channel and make it bigger and better each and every time. I'm told we're going to get some new intro music and stuff's coming. Some new graphics are coming. And that's because there's so many of you who like and subscribe. We're pushing 10,000 subscribers now. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. You're the best fans in baseball for a reason. I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.